my name is Anagha Kulkarni, and my project is titled Supporting Neurodivergent Student Success at Kennedy Library. This research project was conducted in collaboration with my faculty mentor, Mercedes Rutherford-Patten, at California Polytechnic State University, San Luis Obispo. The overarching purpose of this study was to explore how neurodivergent students experience the recently renovated Robert E. Kennedy Library at Cal Poly and to develop recommendations for creating a more accessible and inclusive library environment. And for the purposes of this study, we define neurodivergent as having a mind that functions in ways which diverge significantly from the dominant societal standards of normal, including but not limited to conditions like autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, dyslexia, Tourette's, and many more. Neurodivergent students have different sensory needs compared to neurotypicals since they tend to be more sensitive to certain aspects of their environments than others, and they can get easily overstimulated if these sensory issues are not accommodated for. So things like bright lights, noise, sound, the temperature of a room, how open or closed the space feels, these are all things that could potentially throw a student off and become so bothersome that they aren't able to focus. So, as you can imagine, these students tend to experience a lot of barriers in both academic and other study spaces that affect how they focus and how comfortable they feel in these environments, both mentally and physically. And academic libraries, which are traditionally known for having study spaces for students, are really important in this case to support the learning of students, but they are often designed with a generalized concept of disability, which can result in neurodivergent students lacking equitable access to spaces, resources, and support because it's not built specifically for neurodivergent students in mind. Also, many of these existing studies rely on students to be formally diagnosed with a disability, which might exclude students who are either undiagnosed or just choose not to disclose their disability status due to privacy or for other reasons like internalized stigma. So, I wanted to dig a little deeper and see how we could improve the neurodivergent student experience specifically at Cal Poly and even more specifically the Kennedy Library because it is one of the most popular places on campus to study for all grade levels. So to do so, I used a mixed methods experimental design. So first I sent out a public survey that examined study habits, general library usage, sensory preferences, navigation, predictability, and accessibility experiences in the library. And the survey was filled out by 73 neurodivergent Cal Poly students across a diverse group of majors and grade levels. And participants were allowed to self identify as neurodivergent. We didn't require a formal diagnosis to participate in the survey, and they weren't required to disclose what type of neurodivergence they had. So, since there was a mix of qualitative and quantitative data from the survey, I coded the qualitative data to find common themes, and for the quantitative measures, I used percentages and charts. Um, After the survey, I randomly selected 5 of the survey respondents to participate in semi structured interviews, which were more in depth and explored students' experiences with the library, with probing questions to kind of identify specific barriers, coping strategies that they might use when they're feeling overstimulated, and even any recommendations they might have had for the library. And these interview transcripts were also coded using the same code book as the qualitative responses for the survey. So, one of the most significant findings from the study was that environmental control was the most important factor influencing um, neurodivergent students' spaces or selections for study spaces. So, students consistently emphasized the importance of being able to manage distractions on their own and work comfortably for extended periods of time. So, as you can see from the chart on the poster, frequently mentioned factors included quiet spaces, comfort, privacy, availability of the study space, furniture variety, and access to outlets. And another equally important finding was that these sensory needs varied greatly among the student population. So there was no ideal environment that participants really agreed on because they had very different, varying sensory needs. So, for example, some preferred more quiet, low stimulation areas that were away from people, while other people said that they benefited from some background noise, like white or brown noise, and they preferred to have like a body double or study alongside peers. Um, and there was a similar variation across the noise levels, the number of people that they preferred around them in study spaces, and like lighting conditions as well, how bright or how dim they wanted the space to be. And these findings suggest that neurodivergent students are not a monolithic group and that their sensory needs and their social needs differ across the population, even though they're all neurodivergent. But at the same time, some sensory needs were universal and were agreed upon across the population. So things that were consistently agreed upon were things like comfortable seating, the availability of workspaces, the ability to charge their devices with outlets, and just overall physical comfort. So unlike the sensory preferences of like lighting and noise level, which varied across the population, the more functional needs and the things that they needed with them in the space were mostly the same across the population. Um, and these findings mostly suggest that there's no one ideal study space for neurodivergent students, and instead, what's most important is providing students with choice and flexibility and the ability to adjust the environment around them. So, students mostly wanted to be able to select spaces that aligned with their own sensory and cognitive needs rather than being expected to adapt to an environment. So, if we can provide students with comfortable seating to focus for long periods of time and allow students to adjust their environment to their preferences, so whether that's like a thermostat to adjust the temperature or providing them with noise canceling headphones to adjust the noise level in case they don't have their own, or being able to adjust how bright the lights are in a room, or installing window shades in the library so that people can control the amount of natural light, or even being able to adjust your desk and your chair height. That would make such a big difference for these students so that they don't have to, or they don't feel forced to adapt to their environment, but that their environment works for them. And overall, we just don't want to create a single specialized space. We want to give students a variety of different environments and give them more flexibility to adjust their study environment so that they can accommodate themselves for their different sensory needs. And this way, the Kennedy Library and in general other academic libraries can better support neurodivergent students and create a more inclusive learning environment that doesn't force students to have to adjust or leave and push certain students out of these study spaces. And yeah, that's all I have for my presentation. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions about the project, feel free to contact me or Mercedes, my faculty mentor, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.